lot of people that have a lot of money are getting work done. Some have not, though, and I wonder what makes those people different, the ones that are not getting work done. I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrzych.com or on Instagram at heathergrzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Welcome back to the Wisdom of the Body podcast. I'm Heather Grzych, and today we're delving into the timeless wisdom of Ayurveda to explore anti-aging strategies that not only help us look younger, but also support vibrant health and longevity from within. I'll cover Ayurvedic anti-aging strategies that cover everything from skin and hair to memory, muscle, joint health, and sleep. But before we start, I want to throw out a disclaimer here to say that I'm not giving medical advice, even though I do plan to mention the use of some herbal supplements that are used for anti-aging. These are supplements that are available to all of us, often at our local grocery store. With that, let's get into it. Now, some people look 10 years younger than they really are, and others look 10 years older than they are. But is there a genetic jackpot for youth, or is something else at play? I remember a few years ago having a lunch date with an old boyfriend, and this was a couple of years after I had my kid. And he said to me, "Wow, you don't look all dried out the way women typically do after they have a kid." On one hand, I was like, thank you. And on the other hand, I wanted to know, well, why hadn't I dried out so quickly? I understood why we get dry as we get older and how having a child might impact that process, but I wanted to know, why didn't that happen to me as much? And can I keep that going? So personally, I had a couple of good friends in their 20s who went completely gray. I remember when I was younger, but you would have no clue because they kept their hair very diligently dyed their natural color. Now, you can have gray hair and still not have other features of aging like wrinkles. But, wrinkles are harder to hide than gray hairs. Unless you want to get some kind of plastic surgery or Botox done, then you can hide your wrinkles, but you'll be left with some weird, unnatural look that looked like you got frozen in some Harry Potter spell. But that might feel just fine for you because you don't like the alternative. But most of us don't want to have plastic surgery or dye our hair. No, we actually wish that we could just stay young and not have to do this stuff. We wish we had the ability to go back in time and get back our youth. Once we start to notice the physical signs of aging, it's really hard not to want to do something to cover it up. It's hard to look in the mirror and see wrinkles. It may make us worry that we aren't as valuable or as desirable, or that time is slipping away. And it may remind us that we're going to die someday. I remember my great-grandmother still dyed her hair brown until the year she died. I think she was like 91 or 92. She was the only little brown head in a sea of gray and white puffs in the cafeteria at the old folks' home where she lived. I wonder, am I going to be like that? I'm certainly not immune to wanting to cover up my own aging, but I do wonder, will I go as far as I've seen other people go? A little hair dye here and there doesn't seem too harmless to me. After all, like, those hairs are growing away from me. They're not resting inside my gut somewhere, impacting some physiological process. I could buy some kind of natural hair dye, I guess, if I was concerned about the chemicals. It's just like, putting on lip balm, isn't it? But I personally could never see myself getting a facelift or an eyebrow lift or collagen injections in the lips or Botox. The only cosmetic procedures I've had done were to undo stupid things I did in my 20s, like get a tattoo removed. But could I be a person who did these procedures, these plastic surgery procedures, or a person who gets breast augmentation or liposuction or a tummy tuck? Can I do these things if I care so much about natural living? Are those things at odds with each other? And I wonder, will my vanity ever get the best of me? I wonder if my values will change as I start to notice more gray, more wrinkles. If I look at how beautiful celebrities age, it does seem that many of them get work done. You know, a lot of people that have a lot of money are getting work done. Some have not, though. And I wonder what makes those people different, the ones that are not getting work done. And I also wonder, is one group happier than the other? The studies on happiness and plastic surgery, by the way, are mixed. Some say that people are indeed happier, and others say it's actually oppressive and leads to other issues. I read that the global anti-aging market was valued at around $62 billion in 2021 US dollars, and it's expected to increase to some $93 billion by 2027. I don't even think these numbers include things like getting a crown placed by a dentist or getting a knee replaced, prosthetic additions that many people will have now that we're living so much longer and parts of our bodies are degenerating while other parts are staying just fine. There's also a completely separate market called the longevity market, which has to do more with extending lifespan. So these are often pharma companies that are making drugs that they feel will target what they believe are the root causes of aging. So people are pegging those root causes of aging as senescent cells or telomere shortening or mitochondrial decline or hormonal decline. So it's kind of like two separate areas, one anti-aging and one longevity. But let me be clear, aging is a natural process and it's supposed to be a part of life. At the same time, Ayurveda, which is an ancient science of life, offers profound insights into how we can age gracefully and maintain our vitality as we go older. Looking at people through the Ayurvedic lens may even be able to tell us which ones of us will age faster or slower than the rest. So today I'll be sharing some general information about the factors that influence aging from an Ayurvedic perspective and touch upon practical Ayurvedic tips and strategies for anti-aging that you can incorporate into your daily life. Certain elements are associated with the younger adult years, namely the water, the earth, and the fire elements. But generally, as we enter the middle age, people tend to experience a decrease in the water and earth elements because we moved more toward this air and space elements. And more air and space means we're more dry and less juicy. It's not just time that dries us out. It's not just living longer. It's also lifestyle factors like diet and other basic behaviors that do it. Living roughly, I shall say. Take someone who skis out in the crisp sun and wind all winter versus a person who has spent their winter in Costa Rica doing yoga in a humid jungle. If these two friends met you after returning from their trips in the beginning of spring, one would look more weathered and dry, and the other would look like they have a juicier glow. Now, if the friend in the humid Costa Rican jungle had eaten popcorn every day, then they might have ended up looking like a little more similar to the person that was in winter skiing. Or say that the one in Costa Rica gave birth to a child at the beginning of winter and was struggling to get enough sleep every night or keep up with her hydration, then she might also start to appear a little more dried out like the person who's been skiing all that time. It may seem hard to believe, but how we live impacts how old we look. It's not the only factor, but it's one of them. When it comes to aging and longevity, there are three main areas to focus in. First, we can look for ways to transform parts of us that have aged into something that appears more aesthetically beautiful, right? So that would be plastic surgery. I get Botox ingested in my lip, okay? There are more natural ways to do this. So applying certain creams or oils and things like that would be considered perhaps a little more gentle in nature. And so the first is transforming a part of ourselves that has aged to make it look more aesthetically pleasing. Now, the second area is that we can implement changes to help a specific body part or physiological process function more youthfully. So this one's more about functioning. So maybe there's a bum knee joint or something like that, and that has a specific functional purpose rather than an aesthetic purpose. So that would be the second area to focus in for anti-aging and longevity. And the third area that we might focus in is more about removing factors from our diet, our lifestyle that create imbalance that make us age faster. So the longevity lifestyle, if you will. But first, what does Ayurveda even say is responsible for aging? I recall vividly one of my teachers from India saying that the wind is responsible for our age and aging, and that we age because more wind has blown through us as the earth rotates on its axis. It's interesting, right? Have you ever gone out to a sports game and gotten pelted by the wind and wondered what's happened to your face when you look in the mirror that night when brushing your teeth? The wind dries us out. It's a handy tool if you have a body that's too wet or oily, but when you're already aging and dry, wind is not your friend. In Ayurveda, wind is vata. It's the invisible force that is moving things. You can't see wind, but you can see what it moves, and you can feel it. Prana, which a lot of people are familiar with, is a type of vata. It's a wind that animates your body. So, air element, dry things, light things, mobile things, cold, crisp things. These are the enemies of someone trying not to age. They're just not your friend. Another enemy of someone trying not to age is inflammation, or pitta, as we say in Ayurveda. Anything inflamed that is red or has a name like itis is something that ages you. The reason that inflammation ages you is that it interferes with the transport of fluids, of fats, nutrients, all the elements, basically blocking areas from receiving what they need, and that results in degeneration. Do not take lightly like a bleeding gum or chronic sinus inflammation or headaches or skin issues like red acne or rashes. These are not just cosmetic issues. They're functional issues that can lead to degradation of tissues. If there's high pitta here and there, occasionally, that's different than it being chronic. Anything chronic can lead to faster aging. I'd like to mention one more enemy of someone trying not to age, and that is what we call imbalanced Ugne. Our Ugne is our digestive fire. It's what helps process our foods, convert the foods into usable nutrients by our body. Our cells have Ugne too, their ability to metabolize things. If we have balanced Ugne, then we can digest many things. But if we have imbalanced Ugne, whether it's very slow or very erratic or very sharp, if it's imbalanced in some way, then we end up with things like plaques in our bodies. We don't want plaques in our bodies. We want the body to use what it eats or excrete it. We don't want this third category of stuff hanging around, kind of like we don't want to have tons of junk in our house clogging things up. After a while, it all gets in the way and acts as a hazard. Suddenly you're trying to walk around your house and you keep bumping into things. You can have balanced Ugne and make food choices that aren't exactly a match for it too. So say your Ugne's balanced, but you just ate essentially a wrong food or at the wrong time. You want to eat to your Ugne, meaning the right foods for your body type and the right foods for that season, the right amount, and spaced out to be eaten at the right time and in combination with other things that are synergistic. This is a whole discussion in itself, but I want to point out that clogging substances in your body, what we call ama in Ayurveda, will block the transport of all the good stuff your body needs to regenerate properly. And it can cause the immune system to react to it, the ama, and kick it out, which can then lead to inflammation as a secondary issue. And then you end up with problems that I mentioned earlier from inflammation. Think about these concepts and apply them to specific areas of your body. If you get ama or plaques and inflammation in your skin and your dental area, then you could also think, oh, the same thing could happen to my blood vessels, leading to my heart, or blood vessels leading to my brain. Many chronic diseases contribute to poor aging, uncomfortable aging, say diabetes, for example. It's not just about whether your sugar is high. It's about what happens when your sugar is high. Sticky blood, inflammation, other physiological processes that are constantly trying to clean up the mess of the extra sugar in your blood, and then a whole bunch of things that happen as a secondary issue. And I've watched a few relatives deal with diabetes. That is definitely not a disease I want, though I continue to struggle with my love of sugar. I don't take this battle seriously sometimes, and I eat a piece of cake or maybe a little bit too much fruit in a day. But if I don't take this battle seriously, then I can end up like one of my close relatives having half of his foot amputated. Sometimes it's hard to know where your signs of aging will hit. I was taught that premature graying was a sign of high pitta. In other words, too much fire element, inflammation. My 2 friends who went prematurely gray in their 20s actually had chronic inflammatory gut issues, now that I think about it, aka signs of a pitta imbalance. It could have stemmed from an issue with their Ugne or their digestive fire, not properly digesting foods, and then the body reacting to that as a secondary process. I don't know the details, but I do see that there was a pitta imbalance that they were both suffering from. And I also spent my whole 20s with a pitta imbalance to the point where I couldn't get my legs waxed any longer because my follicles became so inflamed from the waxing. And I suffered from heartburn so bad after my meals that at one point my doctor gave me a sublingual pill, which is a pill that you put under your tongue, to knock myself out in case I couldn't bear the intensity after eating. But I didn't get any gray hairs. So despite the level of pitta imbalance I had back then, which by the way, I cleared up in my 30s with Ayurvedic treatments, I really didn't see any gray hairs until I was 40. Is it just that the imbalance didn't travel to those particular tissues on my head that were involved in hair pigmentation? Or is it something else? Those of you who have more natural kapha in your constitution will likely age more slowly than others. And while earlier in your life, you may have felt it unfair that all your friends were waifs growing up, well, the thicker boned of us tend to look younger as we age. Hooray for you now. So, what can we do to support this balance and slow down the aging process? I know that you wish we could wave a magic wand and suddenly you would be 30 years old again with gorgeous young skin, supple tissues, and an ability to withstand all manner of bodily insults and bounce back so easily. There are times I find myself wanting that too. And while I may not have a magic wand, I do know how we can help you feel alive, strong, and gorgeous, and to maximize the functional potential of your body. Aging gracefully is about supporting our entire being, body, mind, and spirit. And Ayurveda offers holistic approaches to help us thrive at every stage of life. So here are just a few tips I'll leave you with today for those of you over 40. Let's start with skin and hair, 2 areas where aging signs are often noticeable. So for your skincare, you want to make sure that you're nourished both externally and internally. Because we often get more dry as we get older, you want to use natural oils. You could use oils like coconut and sesame or even almond oil for a self-massage to keep your skin supple and hydrated. One great practice called abhyanga, where you do a self-massage. You do it preferably in the morning, before eating. And you do it before a shower, and you let the steam kind of let the oil penetrate after you do the oiling. You want to be careful not to slip in the shower. It's a very common Ayurvedic practice. And in your skincare routines, you can look at herbs. If there's inflammation, for example, you can look at neem or turmeric, products that have those particular herbs in them to cleanse and rejuvenate and get rid of inflammation. Coconut oil is also a great one for that. So generally, you want to keep the skin free of vata and pitta. So with nice juiciness, a warm glow, but not a hot glow. And then for your hair, you can do like a weekly oil massage on your scalp regularly to improve the circulation, strengthen the hair follicles. And the oil can actually even have a cleansing effect if it takes off extra dead cells and things like that when you wash it off, and help dislodge anything that hasn't been kind of like sloughing off easily. And if you have any inflammation there, you can use herbs like bringraj or amla and even coconut oil. And those are great for anti-inflammatories. And some of them can promote hair growth and prevent premature graying. So if you're one of these people whose hair is not very oily, as you get older, your hair is going to get even less oily. So you don't have to wash your hair as often typically as you age, because washing it too frequently will strip out the oils, and that makes your hair frizzy, takes away that softer, smooth look that we associate with younger ages. And if you want to maintain that softer, smooth look, then you want to have a little more oil in your hair. Another thing that people are concerned about as they age is memory and cognitive health. And this is definitely like a whole separate talk that we need to have about this. But there are certain foods that are going to be a little more brain boosting. You definitely need to make sure you have enough fats, but you also need to make sure that your body can assimilate these fats. So we use a lot of ghee in Ayurveda. Other oils are great as well. Nuts, things that have fats in them, fatty fish. And there's a great herb that a lot of people use a lot. It's a very well-studied herb called Brahmi Bacopa, or the scientific name is Bacopa monnieri. And this one is actually shown for its memory-enhancing properties. There's some great studies on it, though you want to be careful with that herb if you get headaches, because I found it can make them worse. And there are lots of other herbs, but just to name one that I think is a star in that regard. And meditation, breathing practices, pranayama, these are great for mental clarity and focus. And keeping a regular routine. Keep a regular routine so your life is predictable, easy enough, but then mix it up with new learning activities where you can continue to practice adapting and maintaining some plasticity in a manageable way. So all those things, taking on a new challenge. I love when I hear somebody who's 70 learning a new language. I remember when I was doing a yoga teacher training, I had a woman in my class who was 70 learning how to teach yoga. I remember when I was in Ayurveda school, I had a woman who was 70 becoming an Ayurvedic practitioner. And I just love seeing people do that in their older age. I think it's great because you want to have a reason to live, right? We got to love life and keep learning and growing. And it's just so cool. And also, if you're done working, say you've retired, you have time to pursue other things, and you don't want to just like go to sleep when you're done working. You want to keep learning. So there's also things like muscle and joint health that we need to consider, because we don't develop muscle as easily as we age, and our joints they get less lubricated, and then things rub more, and then we get more inflammation. Or if we also get more of that ama, which I mentioned, then that can also create a lot of issues in the joints as well. So keeping your joints lubricated, keeping inflammation low, making sure you're fully digesting your meals with different digestive spices, doing gentle exercise like yoga or walking, kind of maybe lower, not necessarily like lower impact, but things are not as rough on the body. And maintain your flexibility and strength, but don't blow your joints out in the process. You've got to be gentle because your body's different than it was when you were 25. Make sure your alignment is impeccable, because when your posture is out of alignment, your joints are going to get injured more easily because they're just not going to have as much protection from insults and weird, misaligned rubbing of bones and tissues. When we get older, we're like the Tin Man. So we have to lube up those joints before moving a lot. And that's why warm-ups become more important. And so does rubbing some nice kitchen cooking oil on your knees before doing the stair climber. Oils will differ by body type, but sunflower oil tends to be a nice oil that most bodies can tolerate well, unless you have obviously an allergy to that particular type of oil and you've had that tested. Other challenges that people have to do with sleep quality. Sleep hygiene is a great practice at all ages, and establishing a calming bedtime routine. Create a sleep-friendly environment. Don't stimulate yourself. Don't do a lot of electronics right before bed. Don't watch TV when you're in bed, things like that. There's a lot of great best practices around sleep hygiene and drinking warm herbal teas. A lot of people will drink chamomile or ashwagandha tea, and they can help promote relaxation. I wouldn't go for alcohol because that tends to have some repercussions in the middle of the night, as opposed to some of these other substances. And things like chamomile and ashwagandha are common practices for many people who struggle with sleep. So keep peace in your life, keep your mind at ease, and make sure to build muscle and get regular exercise so that you feel calm and it's easy to fall asleep and you're not so stimulated and aroused all the time and on edge. So you want to avoid doing things like drinking a bunch of liquid before bed, because you don't want to have to get up to pee every 5 seconds, and then that messes with your sleep quality, and then that messes with how you feel during the day, and then that kind of makes you, it's a vicious cycle. Then it creates a bad pattern for the next night. So drink more earlier in the day between your meals. And these small things oddly help you sleep better. There's a lot more to cover on this topic, including more about like ageless skin or joint and muscle health, stress, and also about sexual functioning. But we'll continue that in a future episode or episodes so that we can go a lot deeper into those subjects. But today, let's recap. Graceful aging is about balancing Vata, Pitta, Agni, and Ama. It's about maintaining our function and our strength and keeping a soft, healthy glow. What we do matters, and we have to do some things a little differently than we did 10 years ago, but that's okay. It's fun to learn new stuff. And nobody wants to go to like a keg party at this point in our life, do we? No. It's fun to change when we allow it. There's lots of new things to learn. So in summary, we want to address multiple aspects of our health and well-being when we're looking to age gracefully. And you can incorporate some of these small tips in your daily routine. You'll be able to support your body's natural ability to stay youthful and vibrant. And before we close, I want to remind you that aging is a natural part of life. And each stage of life offers its own unique gifts and opportunities. I'm right here with you, you know? I'm going to get old too. I am getting old. But Ayurveda teaches us to embrace the aging process with grace and gratitude and taking proactive steps to support our health and vitality. I'll likely be wrestling with my relationship with hair dye as I approach 50 in a few years. But would I get Botox? I don't know. I'm hoping my Ayurvedic strategies continue to help me feel gorgeous and healthy, so I don't want to get Botox. But check in with me next month. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Ayurvedic anti-aging strategies. I hope you found these insights and tips valuable. Stay tuned for more episodes of Wisdom of the Body podcast. And please reach out with questions and comments via my website, heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. I'm really curious about what you want to know more about. If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. You want a full human experience when you seek a healthcare provider, and you don't want 15 minutes with someone who can't even try to find out the root cause of things because they're so overwhelmed themselves. You have a body, a mind, a heart, and dare I say it, even emotions. You're not crazy. Everything does affect you, and it's possible to feel better if you have the support you need. Set up an appointment with me to heal naturally. Go to heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on the Wisdom of the Body.